And the situation with the nuclear fallout from Fukushima has been the heaviest thing on my mind. And I keep bringing that up because it relates directly to these cycles. The solar cycle, I believe, is related to what has been happening with nuclear power in a very, very dark, yet nevertheless very direct physical way that involves physical laws that are not in the consciousness of the people who have harnessed this power. And so there's a reason in astrophotometry, very specific scientific reason, why the sun emits the frequency range that it does, why it emits energy that is in the frequency range of hydrogen and helium primarily, and appears to be undergoing this nuclear reaction. That's the best modern scientific explanation that's been taken outside of the context of the traditional theology that has separated because of the Copernican Revolution. Now, unfortunately, the Copernican Revolution will have been sort of huge detour in the development of the human consciousness of its own nature. Unfortunately, the perception that is provided by the telescope is no better than someone with the flat Earth model looking at the horizon with a similar sort of magnifying device and seeing stuff on the horizon going, oh, and ignoring the deeper reality that the Earth isn't really flat. That's what's happening. In the esoteric understanding, the sun contains the rest of the solar system. The perceived orbit around the sun is an indicator of that container. It's an indicator of the nature of this higher dimensional container, of which the solar logos is all a manifestation. In the sense that of logos as a phonetic form, as a symbolic form, is the word of what would be in the Bible God. And this, every word, not just what's in the Bible, people. And this is bad. This is bad that these Catholics who've broken off, and if you look at the history of the United States in the context of the collapse, is an infant, is a screaming child that ran off away from its roots. Broke off. People broke off from England and Europe, and they left behind their past. They divorced themselves from their history, and when they came to the United States, it didn't go like they had planned. They were challenged. Jamestown, the settlement, had an incredible mortality rate, and the settling of the United, quote unquote, settling of the United States was a traumatic thing. It wasn't a simple thing, and the culture was not completely transplanted. These people lost touch with their roots. They lost touch with their history. They lost the interpretations of their books, and they pretended that this didn't happen. They were in denial about the people here in the United States are in denial about who they are and what they are, and this is a problem. And this collapse, it's a sort of this inevitable thing that nature is bringing about. And my deeper concern is that the foray, the folly with the nuclear power, represents in the logos itself a sort of old, a very, very old reformation. There's something that is stirring in the depths of time. In the song Atomic Heals, the band Secret Machines refers to a time crash. I think that's very interesting. time crash. Terence McKenna in Time Wave Zero talked about the concrescence of novelty. These are interesting metaphors that I think can be useful. I don't think that Terence was completely honest with everybody about Time Wave Zero, and I think that it got a lot of attention by the people who wanted to take him down. What happens is the disinformation agents will pump up the most ridiculous thing about some person's claim that they want to trash their other ideas. When they want to trash, when somebody wants to trash my ideas, what they'll do is they'll try to focus on the weakest thing and make it the biggest thing about me, because I'm all about that one thing that failed. And in a sense, that's what Farscape did. In a sense, that strategy was played out. It tries to exploit, in a sense. And originally, I think that some of the intentions were good. I'm not really sure about all the different parties that were involved, but it involves this sort of these incidents that are going to probably be secret. I'm not going to talk about them publicly for a while, and I think that there's people who want to hear me talk about it publicly so that the government will declassify their investigations and their part of it. And I don't think that they'll ever completely come clean on what their part of it was. I don't think that they can do that. It should be just like, it's about as likely as Neil Armstrong going on TV and telling everybody that he didn't really walk on the moon. It's not going to happen. And so we're faced with the reality of the institutionalized deception until it's destroyed, until the institution is brought down. And I think that's what's going to happen. That's what has to happen. My parents are brainwashed. I have to deal with the fact that I can't tell my family about my reality. I can't tell my family. My family thinks that I'm crazy because I believe some of the things that I believe. They don't know any better. They've been brainwashed. And this has been the way that these criminals have dealt with the fallout from their deception, from their fraud. They deal with it by creating the illusion of their opponents being wrong and crazy. And sometimes they do this in ways that are subtle and sometimes not so subtle. And it's looking at the effect, the dark sort of effect that I've had on the culture because of the science fiction, because of the popular media references that 99.9% of the people that go to see the movies or watch the TV shows never get. The only other person that I can point to that has had the sort of effect on science fiction that I've had is Philip Dick. And he wrote a lot of stories and made a lot of contributions to this arena, this uncharted territory arena, from his excursions in psychedelics and experience with these experiences with these other worlds. And the difference is that they paid him for his stories. They didn't steal his stories. And what happened is, by the time the U.S. government when the U.S. government made LSD illegal, they created a huge problem because they still needed to study it. And what they did is they created situations where they could get people who knew how important this was to study to break the law in exchange for what is sort of like similar to what has sort of happened to me. And so this is the secret truth behind this. The secret truth behind this is that there is a very, very devious, evil, illegal structure that has developed in response to the drug laws that basically it manipulates people and takes away their freedom and their rights. And I was never threatened with arrest. I was never, not directly, subtly, tangentially, yes, but never directly. And it was never really a possibility on the level that the people who were experimenting on me wouldn't have let it happen, even though they let the police find out about it and sort of pawned the police into working with them in ways that were unknown to the police. Which, at this level, it gets crazy. It's insane what's going on. And most people would never believe the extent that the so-called intelligent agencies have had to go to be able to keep up with the Joneses. And so there was these mind weapons that are referred to in Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. We've got Colonel Dr. Arina Spalko. I don't want to give you her real character reference, but the Soviets were working on this sort of stuff, and when it was discovered that there was a way to connect minds using electrical or psychedelic fusion, this was a huge thing. I mean, it's a huge thing. This is the avatar technology. This is the technology to have one mind in the body of another. And before John Crichton was launched into space, I was reading a book called Neuromancer, and it's by a guy by the name of William Gibson. This is another piece that Hollywood has passed on because it's such a hot topic. There's a very similar movie that was made called Brainstorm with Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood, and it was her last movie. She died halfway through making Brainstorm, and this sort of sent a message to Hollywood about what is perceived as a sort of danger, a very real danger in the reality of the situation. And see, the problem is that this technology is very strategic, and it's very touchy, because if people knew about it, they wouldn't want it to exist. And people, this was one of the things that Edison was warning about alternating current, was that he was saying that it was evil because it could take the life out of something with no trace. You could electrocute something and there was no clear understanding of why that thing had died. Yeah, the heart stopped. It stopped breathing. No shit, Sherlock. But there is a continuum to the nature of life that is disturbed by alternating current. And this disturbance happens on other levels. So there are subtle, unconscious effects, unconscious, I don't want to say symptoms, but forms. There are manifestations of conscious phenomenon. There are manifestations of conscious phenomenon that coincide with the use of electrical devices, and these are largely unconscious, so the people aren't aware of the effects the devices have on their consciousness. And so the only people who are really aware of it are the people who study it, and they end up either falling off a ship and drowning, or finding a job in some side sort of some secret organization that tries to manipulate and control the world with it. And this is a very, very serious issue that is not on the table as far as what the governments would normally be doing to police things.